down, but students that do drink binge. What do we do? Watch ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Now we're going to return to the scene of the very first story I reported for prime time many years ago. We were tracking the murder of a 16-year-old girl who was a street kid in Portland, and while we were there, we met a number of runaway teenagers who shared the victim's lonely life. They acted as if it were a great adventure, but we knew it was not. And we wondered where the years had carried them. So we went back to Portland to start our search. It's been 9 years since we dropped down behind the Portland skyline, onto the streets and into the shadow world of runaway kids. In 1989, this was one of the country's largest communities of nomadic children. That year, 1,000 of them, spending the nights in squalid shacks, doing drugs. An independent republic of prostitution, danger, and we now know, regret.
I told myself, oh, I'm running away to find myself. I'm running away to be free. You know, it was all very young and naive of me to even think that.
There were 5 kids in particular who lingered in memory, who made us wonder what futures were written in their faces. The wistful 14-year-old who called himself Frog, a troubled kid who said he was beaten at home, but told us someday he'd have a real family and a future that would be very different.
What do you want for yourself later on?
Good income, good place to live, family, nice family that I ain't gonna beat up on.
There was a tough guy, a 16-year-old drug dealer called Sphinx.
Drug dealing I call work. Okay, that's work.
There was a spirited girl named Shay Silver, full of big talk.
If you've been down here, you know where you're coming from. You know where you're going, and you ain't gonna let nobody stop you.
And Tiffany, the 14-year-old who was drifting into prostitution and didn't seem to have much of a shot at survival.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. What are you like?
Well, I'm very naive.
And finally, a girl I saw only briefly once in the park. She told us she had come to join her sister on the streets, but added something that stopped us cold.
My sister was killed. They found her in April.
What had she been doing?
Prostituting, smoking crack, ripping people off.
And yet you're still out here?
Yeah.
What's the matter with you? You're still out here.
You don't have a choice.
Why don't you change it?
There's nothing the matter with it.
It's hard to leave when you can't find the door.
Roxanne Hatfield then, Roxanne Hatfield now.
I have 16 felony convictions for car theft, 2 for methamphetamine, and 1 for prostitution. Although that's on my adult record. On my juvenile record, I got arrested countless times for prostitution, for running away from home.
We found her through an old friend, a counselor. She was a fugitive, hiding out in Central Oregon after jumping bail on car theft and forgery charges. She told us the years since we met had been a wasteland of theft, drugs, prostitution. Back in Portland, they'd called it hustling.
Will you hustle?
Yeah. Do it a lot.
You hate it?
Yeah. I was running from something I didn't know how to explain.
Her mother, an alcoholic, and she said she'd been sexually abused since she was 9.
When I was 12, I was told that I was a whore, that I was making it all up, that I was going to be a junkie and a prostitute, and, you know, I was just going to be this really bad person. And strangely enough, that's what happened.
You do drugs?
Yeah.
Is that why you hustle, for the money of the drugs?
Mostly.
What kind?
I do speed. Smoke pot. It was just a way to survive. It was a way to get through the next day, or the next hour, or the next minute. When I look back on it now, I miss my childhood, because I didn't get to go to the prom. I didn't get to go to school, you know, and hang out with my friends. I didn't get to do any of that stuff. And I miss that. And, you know, there's times where I'm really angry that I didn't have this life that everybody else has, you know. But I can't, you know, here I am crying about it, but I tell myself, well, I can't, you know, let myself get caught up in that because it will just bring me back down. I gotta start from here and go on.
And she'd already done something she'd never done before. She stopped drugs. She moved in with a lover, a girlfriend. She had a home and a job as a baker. She told us if she could just turn herself in and serve the time, she'd have a real shot at the life she'd always wanted. But as she said 9 years ago, sometimes it's hard to find the door. Just 3 months after this interview, we heard Roxanne was back on the street in a dangerous tailspin of prostitution and drugs. Next, we set out to find that tough-talking entrepreneur, the 16-year-old drug dealer, Sphinx.
I think was that about 15 cents?
That's 16, yeah.
16, 15?
Most people call the streets a place for kids to hang around and make problems. I call the streets my home.
For several weeks, we searched law enforcement records, driver's license records, and wrote countless letters. We knew his real name was Frank Edwards. We didn't know how completely his teenage bravado would disappear.
I've never been arrested for having drugs. Okay, I've had the drugs on me when they've searched me, but they haven't found them yet.
I'm Frank Edwards, and I live in jail right now.
Frank Edwards now, age 23. Over the years, in and out of jail for a series of petty crimes. We found him serving 6 months for driving without a license. The defeated reality at the end of all those adolescent expectations.
Here. Happy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was proud to be there. I felt comfortable there. I thought I was just the coolest thing in the world. It was an illusion. Then I'm sure I felt 100% that I was doing the right thing and that everybody else was full of it. And now it's a reverse situation. What I did then is what got me here.
A whole hell of a lot I haven't done, really. Go and get a guy and ask him out on a date or something like that, and then take him up the road somewhere and beat the shit out of him and get his money in his wallet.
I'm ashamed of what I've done, the things that I've done in the past. I wish I could take them all back. There's no way to balance the scales. There's nothing that I've done that would even come close to balancing it out.
We did finally get more of his story. Like Roxanne's, his childhood was bleak. He says he never knew his mother, and his father was a drifter. And he told us that tough street kid had secretly just wanted a real family, a real dad. Yet he had abandoned the 3 kids he fathered when he was a teenager.
I wouldn't know how to explain to them why I haven't been there in the last 4 years.
Like Roxanne, Frank told us he wanted to begin again with his girlfriend and her kids. He swore that when he got out of jail in a month, he would move as far away from Oregon as he could to see if this time the sweet, ordinary things other people had were within his grasp.
I just want my own house. I want to come home from work every day and sit on my couch next to my wife and watch TV, and I picture this. All I see is, you know, smiling and being happy.
I've been out here since I was 7.5 years old.
And what about the girl who talked nonstop when we first met her? Unlike the others, she was a middle-class kid, her parents still living together. And we weren't sure we believed the story Shay Silver told us about why she'd run away.
Started running away, and then once I turned 15, I told them I was gay, and they said, goodbye. We ain't gonna deal with that no more.
The homosexuality turned out to be true. But we learned that her real problem had been she just didn't fit in with suburban kids her age. She was a little rough, different. So she came to the streets of Portland to see if she could find friends, other kids like her.
Okay. What are you going to do? What are you going to do 5 years from now? Really?
5 years from now, I intend to be a psychologist. I'm going to have me a clinic that is going to help street kids. I'm going to have me a foster home, and I'm going to pull these kids off the streets and keep them off.
My name is Shay, and I'm a social worker now.
Shay Silver, 8 years later. We found her doing pretty much what she dreamed. Only she's not working with kids, but developmentally disabled adults.
B4.
Nope. Some of my folks are like street kids. Some of my folks are like little kids.
Bill,
It's really rude to talk over the top of somebody. And being a former street kid, I know what it's like to be shunned. I know what it's like to be, you know, just out of people's view. People don't want to deal with my clients, and they don't want to deal with people like me either. They fear us. They don't understand us.
Take what happened, she says, when she left the streets to join the Army.
Needless to say, I didn't fit in exactly well. I'm not very feminine. I would fend off multiple passes by men. And pretty soon word circulated that, you know, they're pretty sure I'm lesbian.
She says after serving a year and a half, she was discharged for being gay. She started drinking again and found herself back on the street. What pulled her out of the nosedive this time was the thought of a child, her own. She had told us about him 9 years ago.
I have had a little boy, okay? I've given him up for adoption. In 7 years, he will be back with me, okay? Because I know that for a fact. My little boy loves me and I love him, and I'll be goddamned if I let anybody get in my way now.
I get pictures of him twice a year, and I get to send him gifts twice a year for his birthday and for Christmas. So that's all the contact I've really got with him. I'd like more, but at this stage, I can't.
She said it was for him that she went to school and got a degree.
I wonder if he misses me. I wonder what he wants in life. And I want him to know I'm there. You know, I don't want him to ever think that I abandoned him.
And she has something else she says she'd like to share with him. An apartment, a home.
To not have a home is not to have yourself. You know, there's no stability in your life. There's no center. There's no place to ground. There's nothing to call your own. Everything you have, you carry on your back if you have anything at all. I'll work myself into the ground before I let this go. You know, I'll work around the clock, 7 days a week, forever. If that's what it takes, that's what I'll do.
One who has made it, two still looking for the way.
I have nothing to do here but think, and I think I probably spend most every day wondering why how I went wrong and why.
I always knew that there was something better for me, but I just don't really know how to get there, I guess.
And all of them still haunted by fear.
My fear is that I'm going to lose everything again and that I'll be back on the streets and not knowing what to do.
A big worry that I'll fail, that I won't be able to do it, or I won't be able to do right by my family.
If I lose everything I've worked for again, I don't know if I can make it back.
In a moment, the final search for the two youngest kids. We encounter a surprise.
We have the how-to clinics where we show the customer how to do the project themselves.
Time continues. Once again, Dianne Sawyer.
So, what about those two 14-year-old kids, a little boy named Frog and the girl who seemed so lost? Tiffany, who started out cocky, telling me she'd left home simply because she fought with her dad.
I really don't care about my family right here. I don't care about my grandmother, I don't care about my dad, I don't care about no one of them.
Then later, she told us more. That familiar story.
They say that I lie, and they don't think that my dad really did sexually abuse me and all that stuff, so.
But he really did.
But he did.
Over the years, she and I exchanged occasional letters. Once she wrote me from a state school for girls. As we said, we had the least hope for her. A flighty 14-year-old adrift on a brutal highway of alcohol and prostitution. So what we were about to discover gave us faith in the power of love and luck.
My name is Tiffany, and best thing in my life right now is my husband and my kids coming on the way.
Tiffany Anderson, homemaker, expectant mother. She told us about her remarkable odyssey. When one night, just a few years ago, homeless and drunk again, in desperation, she went to the house of a man she barely knew, though she remembered him as kind, someone who wanted nothing from her. She passed out on his living room chair. Today, that house is her home.
I knew I'd be okay here. I knew I'd be safe here. Just for some weird reason, I knew I'd be all right.
For 2 years, mechanic Larry Anderson gave her shelter and respect. Then, she says, the trust turned to love.
It's probably the most beautiful things I've ever said or done is get married and say my vows, and you know, that's kind of, it means a lot to me.
Oh, shoot, I even cried at my own wedding when I heard that wedding march start and saw her come walking into the room. Just absolutely beautiful. That wedding dress, prettier than any picture I could ever imagine.
I'll never divorce him. And if you ever split up, buddy, you'll never get a divorce, because a marriage is a one-time deal with me. Oh, I found some good ones, though. Oh.
They live only a few miles and a world away from her old life.
What do you charge them?
Well, actually, I charge $40 for the lay and $20 for if they were, you know. There's no way I would let myself do that again. Go back down there and, you know, just basically hit rock bottom like that. And just go down without a fight.
Sounds really good. Pretty exciting to hear that every week, isn't it?
Yep. It's just really exciting. You'll be here next week. I'll take it on. I'm going to give it the best shot I can.
Look at you. Look at the three of you. Hi.
6 months later, we dropped in to see Scotty and his parents.
And look at you.
Scotty.
Our street kids now with kids of their own, in each case promising to be there for their children, only some of them succeeding.
First time I picked up my daughter, it was just like, boom, everything just changed.
What about this man who says he's going to give his newborn child the life he didn't have? Does the face look familiar? Could it be that he was once a little buck-toothed kid called Frog?
Who's Frog?
Frog is an individual that, I don't know, it's pretty cool in my eyes.
A pretty cool kid who, according to him, had been beaten at home. He says his mother gave up on him after her remarriage. And at 14, he was already drinking 12 beers a day and clearly in the grip of something he didn't understand.
You a troublemaker?
Yeah, basically.
Why?
'Cause, I don't know, probably all these emotions built up inside me that I take it out on other people.
Back then, in the front of the car, you told me that you had emotional problems.
Yeah.
Still do?
Yeah. A lot of anger and resentment. I had anger problems. That's what ended me up in jail.
What did you do?
I was drinking one night, and I wanted to beat somebody up, so I started beating somebody up. They paid me to stop hitting them. It was really messed up on my part.
His real name is Dennis McElraith. We were there when he got out of jail, a long way from his dream 9 years ago.
If you could really just imagine the dream place to live, what would it look like? What would it be like? Your dream home?
Be a big old mansion with marble steps and pillars, marble pillars up front, and a big, huge old swimming pool in the back, and the big old rope swing going over it.
A swing?
Yeah, rope swing.
What kind of parents would be in it?
Ones that tape over their mouth and handcuffs behind their back so they can't hit me.
Hi. Hi.
In our interview, he made a pledge to his little girl who was born while he was in jail. Her name is Brandy Rose.
If you ever thought that she'd end up out on the street like you were?
She took off. I'd spend weeks down here looking for her. Yeah.
Is that what you wanted back then? You wanted them to come find you and bring you home and...
Yeah, yeah.
Keep trying?
I wanted somebody to make an effort, at least show something.
Yet for all his promises, 10 days after we saw him, the old life reclaimed him. The drinking, the depression, the disappearing. Dennis McElraith hitchhiked out of Portland, leaving his family behind. And so our journey ends for now. 5 kids, 5 stories, 5 lives still filled with heartbreak and hope.
Yeah, I want kids. I want them to be able to do anything that they dream of doing. Because I have dreams. You know, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. You know, and I still, if I could go to space today, I would. I would hope that my kids could have those dreams and have them be happening for them.
So if we check in with you 7 years, 8 years from now, what are we going to see?
7 or 8 year old little girl running around in the yard. Probably me coming home from work.
I want to start a nationwide program for street kids.
Hopefully I'll still be taking care of my home like I normally do. And my kid won't be such a butthead like I was. And
I want to go after my dream. And I might not get to be an astronaut, but I'm going to get close.
It's a big world, and you can always go somewhere and start over. All you got to want to do is want to.
I do want a life. I'm going to have one. I'm going to have one.
And as of tonight, we have some good news. Roxanne may be on her way. After we lost her back to the streets, she phoned us to say she had turned herself in, served her time, and wants everyone to know that as of this evening, she's found work and has stopped taking drugs. Dennis McElraith, Frog, returned to Portland several months ago and has begun to see his young daughter regularly. Frank Edwards made good on his promise to move far away from Oregon and get a job. He tried to start a new life, but when he was laid off, he wound up in jail again. He served the time and is now back with his family and once again looking for work. Shay Silver, she's been promoted. She's now supervising a group home for developmentally disabled adults. And Tiffany Anderson is still married and a happy mom of a bouncing baby boy.
At Prime Time, we've spent years refining the element of surprise.
Dr. Doppin, Sam Donaldson of Prime Time Live.
I'm John Quinones from Prime Time Live.
Chris Wallace from ABC News. How are you?